Thank you, and a very warm welcome to everyone again this afternoon. I hope you've enjoyed day 3 so far. I certainly have. And welcome everyone to our Q&A session this afternoon, where we're going to be focusing on coaching and transformational change. So we're going to give you an overview and an outline of the work that we've undertaken in Pembrokeshire County Council, particularly around transformation and the integral role that coaching has played in enabling this change to happen. We're then going to answer any questions that you might have. So to give you a bit of background then, since 2018, transformation in Pembrokeshire County Council has been organised around 3 key areas. So that's technology, culture and relationships. And I've been really fortunate to have been involved in this work. It's been challenging, but it's also been very enjoyable. I've been involved in it for the last 6 years or so. And since 2018, I've been the lead officer for the People and Behaviour workstream of the Cultural Transformation Project. So I believe that an organisation's culture is its personality. So it's the norms and the behaviours of Pembrokeshire County Council. It's influenced and it's really determined by its people. It plays out in its processes, and it's the underlying both visible and crucially invisible driving force of how our organisation operates. But culture is also reflected in the stories that we tell when we talk to our colleagues, when we talk to our family or our friends or people that we meet. It's crucially what we say to them when we talk about working for Pembrokeshire County Council. And in my view, the success of the transformation programme has always been dependent on cultural transformation. So we are, after all, asking people to work differently, to deliver statutory services more effectively, and to deliver our non-statutory services in a really different way. And we also know that change begins when an organisation's leaders start to model the culture that the organisation wants to emulate. However, again, culture isn't something that can be created and communicated from the top down. We understood this, and that's why we really wanted to involve the whole organisation in contributing to cultural transformation. So in terms of this project that we undertook, that we're still working on, we were always expecting an evolution and not a revolution. We know that significant change takes time, especially if you want to engage and involve people, as we did. People are loyal to culture. They're not loyal to strategy. There were many people loyal to our existing culture and many people who wanted to see real change. So to begin with, it really was a balance. We were looking for a way to utilise the strengths of our existing culture and then change it to one that supports and develops these new ways of working. And our transformation journey is not over, and I'm not standing here or sitting here today and proposing that I have a blueprint for cultural change. Arguably, the work on culture is never completed. So what we're looking to do is actively allow for this evolution to continue. And this is precisely why coaching has been such an integral part of the culture change process for us. I did think, though, however, it would be useful for us to outline the key steps that we have taken so far and explain really how coaching has contributed to that cultural change. So I'm going to hand over to my colleague Julie now, and she's going to talk you through some of the key steps that formed part of this project.
Hi everyone. So as Victoria said, I'm just going to talk you through how we've used coaching within the organisation to aid this transformational change. So as we wanted to evolve our organisation's culture, we decided to begin with an analysis of the current culture. So we undertook an organisational-wide survey. Now, before we started this, we realised that the current situation contained lots of components that provided natural advantages, but also a lot of component parts that may well have been acting as brakes. So we provided a matrix against which people were invited to describe our existing culture, and used coaching style questions then to enable them to put forward their ideas as to what was good about our current culture and what they thought needed to be improved going forward. So to begin with, Victoria did some extensive work with our senior leaders through team coaching. And through this, they were able to explore their values, their preferred culture for the organisation going forward, and also, really importantly, the leadership behaviours that they wanted to see. We then ran engagement sessions, bringing together groups of people from across the organisation, because as Victoria mentioned, we knew that this was going to begin with our leaders modelling that behaviour, but actually we wanted input from everybody right across the organisation. So we brought together groups of people and we facilitated these discussions, again using coaching questions to identify the key behaviours needed to embed this new culture within the organisation. And this then formed the basis for a new behaviour standard within Pembrokeshire County Council. So we run an annual leadership and management development programme that a cohort of managers go through every year. And as part of the programme, managers are also assigned a coach. So each of them, as they're going through their development journey, they also have a coach that they spend a minimum of 6 sessions with as part of their development. They also undertake manager as coach training in order to encourage them to adopt a coaching style of management within their teams. So we've promoted and offered coaching to all managers and senior leaders, one-to-one coaching. And since 2017-2018, we've seen an increase of 60% in those taking up coaching, and we are planning going forward now for this increase to continue year on year. So in order to grow our ability to coach 300 plus managers that we have, we realised we needed to increase our capacity of our in-house coaches. So this year we've put 12 people through the ILM level 5 coaching and mentoring with USW, and shortly we will have 16 qualified coaches in-house as opposed to 4. So we'll have a lot more capacity then to continue with this increased programme. We ran briefing sessions as part of our behaviour standard launch, and again used coaching questions to ask, what does the new standard mean to you? What are you going to do differently? Because what we didn't want was a behaviour standard that was there in print, perhaps up on the wall in posters, possibly put away in drawers, and that's all it was. We needed people to live this behaviour every day, and this is why we wanted everybody involved in creating the behaviour standard. It's been created for everybody to be lived by everybody every day. Team coaching then has also been an integral part of the senior leadership development programme that our senior leaders and cabinet members are currently undertaking. So as you can see, coaching has been an essential part of this culture change programme, and I've no doubt that without it we couldn't have achieved our aims going forward, and certainly with our ongoing work. So that's a little flavour of what we've used coaching for within this transformational programme. Normally at this point we'd ask any questions, but I'm just aware that sometimes it's a bit difficult to come up with questions when you're trying to digest and reflect on information. So what we're going to do with Richard's help is we're going to put you into a few breakout rooms, and we'd like you just to discuss and think about what we've already shared with you. Possibly discuss the ways that you've used coaching in your own organisation to bring about transformational change. And then when you come back, we can have a conversation, we can answer any questions, and have a discussion around what everybody else is using, so that this is an area for us all to share what we have. Thank you for that. Hopefully you found that that's useful. So what we'd like to do with the next bit is to do this in two parts. We'd like, first of all, to answer any questions that you have about what we've shared with you. And if you'd like to type those questions in the chat, we'll take them one by one as they come up. Now, I'm aware that not everybody has chat, so if you don't, if you want to just put your hand up and then I'll come to you and you can turn your mic on, that would be great. So we'll do that first, and then after that, we'd like to invite you to share what else you were chatting about, how you've used coaching for transformational change, so that we can all, you know, explore that conversation together. So if you'd like to type any questions you have, I know Charlie, you had a question, didn't you? Okay, not to worry. I tell you what, should we just do it with microphones then? So Charlie, do you want to just ask your question? I think Victoria's going to take this one.
Yeah, sorry, chat was just taking ages to come up. So my question was what initially prompted or was the driving factor behind doing the cultural transformation project?
I think it was primarily driven, Charlie, by the realisation that in order to change our organisation, to transform it quite radically, we needed to look at the culture. There'd been transformation programmes in place for a number of years, but we were never focusing specifically on culture. So it came about as a result of the realisation, really, that that's what we needed to pay attention to in order to enact all the other changes that were going alongside the transformation programme. So, like I said, it is organised into relationships, technology and culture. So they were the three specific areas. Does that answer your question? Is that okay? Yeah. Thank you, Charlie.
Thanks, Charlie. Okay, we've got a question from Rebecca. How was the change led within the organisation? Was it an L&D led initiative, or HR, OD, or a change team?
It was led by a transformation team, really, which was pulled together by people from across the organisation, from very different areas in the organisation, and was a mixture of officers at different levels, and also working in conjunction with a transformation board, which was made up by directors and members and the chief exec. So it was a large, large scale team, really, and people had different responsibilities. So I'm the lead officer for the people and behaviour aspect of the programme, but then you have different people from different areas of the organisation with a lead sort of role on pieces of the project. And I think it works really, really well, because we all come together to sort of review the projects. And there's a lot of collaboration that happens from different areas of the organisation. So yeah, that's how it's been led.
Okay, does anyone? Rachel. I think
Thank you, Julie. Yeah, I just had a question around. It sounds almost like the culture piece is and the coaching has come out of the culture work, which has come out of a work stream as part of the transformation project or piece of work. Do you see it as having a sort of lifespan? So whilst this transformation is going through, and you have this transformation project or whatever you want to call it happening, I don't know quite how to articulate it, really. I guess what I'm getting at is, do you see there being an end point, or will this culture work continue in some way? Because culture is everything, isn't it?
I don't see there's an end point to it, Rachel. No, that's why we talked about we're expecting evolution, not a revolution. We're in it for the long haul, and we need to adjust as environmental factors impact on the organisation. I mean, if we think about what's happened over the last year, that's had a real impact on our organisation, and it affected the culture going forward. So we need to adjust in line with that. To answer a point you made earlier, coaching was already in existence in our organisation. We just felt that actually it was part of it would be really beneficial to integrate it into the cultural change programme that we were designing. So yeah, Julie, did you want to come in and say anything else about that as coaching?
Yeah, I was going to make a similar point, actually, that we'd been laying the groundwork by promoting a coaching culture for quite a few years before this particular work around the culture kicked off. And we've seen a real transformation here, particularly with our middle managers, because the cohort that we've got going through the ILM level 5, we made the decision that they needed to be people managers because they were going to be coaching people managers, and there was kind of a multi-strand reason for that. So besides providing additional coaching capacity for us, we also hope that those coaches would adopt a more coaching management style themselves through what they were learning, and what we're seeing is that has happened. What's also happened is that what they're reporting back to us during supervision is that they now have a much better understanding of the work that's going on in the rest of the organisation. So we're getting away from that silo working. And I mean, what a few of them have said is that they have learned as much from coaching another manager as they think that manager has got out of the coaching themselves. So it's been quite a win-win situation, I would say. And I think there are already a few people who have mentioned that they'd be interested if we run another coaching programme. Those who've been coached this year would like to become coaches, which is great. So it means that is growing out into the organisation, that coaching culture, not necessarily that structured coaching, that one-to-one coaching or team coaching, but that coaching style of management is growing out into the organisation, which is what we hope to see. We've got a couple more questions. Dorothy is working with councillors in Northern Ireland on a leadership development programme and would be interested in hearing more about the team coaching with councillors. I think I might let you handle that one, Victoria, although we both did do a whole day with them, didn't we, as well, in Stackpole?
Yeah, okay. So Dorothy, there's been lots of work that's happened with our elected members, and particularly our cabinet members. So the leadership team coaching happened with our cabinet and our senior leadership team. There was a recognition within the organisation that those two teams needed to become more aligned in terms of their vision for the future or the preferred culture of the organisation. So the team coaching happened with our cabinet members and our senior leadership team, and then together as a senior leadership team. And that's continuing now with our senior leadership development programme that cabinet and that senior corporate management team are undertaking together. But we also brought our elected members into play in terms of engaging them with our briefing sessions and our engagement sessions, and that was a change in culture in itself. We hadn't previously had sitting around a table senior managers, employees and elected members, so we pushed the boundaries and got everybody around the table having conversations together, and that worked in terms of a small kind of culture change in itself. So I don't know if that's answered your question,
yeah,
but
that has. That's very interesting. Yeah, thank you very much indeed.
Okay, thanks, Dorothy.
We've also got a question from Louise. What learning interventions besides coaching have been delivered? Shall I take the first of all talk about the manager programme that we designed, Victoria? Maybe you can talk about the programme that you and Dean were involved with.
Yeah.
So I was tasked with building a programme for managers around the new behaviour standard and around the culture. So we started with what was called, oh gosh, it was so long ago and I can't remember the title. Was it
Let's Go Forward? Let's
Go Forward, that's it. So moving forward together, and then let's go forward. So everybody who came on that programme had to do a Let's Go Forward session where they got together in groups of about 20 managers, and they looked at the different component parts of the culture and broke it down into what that looked like for them within their areas and how it was going to change the way that they were working. And then we had some themes running through it. So there were things like high trust behaviours, there was communication, there was some neuroscience involved with the evolution of the brain and communication styles. We ran the manager as coach sessions on the open programme, and We also had some work around feedback. We used a model called Radical Candor. There was also work around creativity and innovation, but this is an ongoing program. This is evolving and growing as we speak. We had to have a bit of a halt when we all went into lockdown because our work focus shifted within the team. But thankfully now the program is all back on track. So Victoria, do you want to talk about the work that you and Dean were doing?
Yes, well, we were basing our learning interventions, as Julie said, on the behaviour standard that we co-designed with the rest of the organisation. And that was really concerned at looking at, if this is the culture of our organisation that we want, what are the behaviours that sit underneath that, which will enable us to embed and develop that new culture. So we used a behavioural science technique looking at the key behaviours that were component parts of that standard and designed a number of different learning interventions that had the best chance of changing people's behaviours or developing their behaviours. So there's a lot of work that went on in the background around this, and we were looking at things around working collaboratively, challenging respectfully, being engaged with continuous learning and development, being more customer focused, communicating effectively, taking ownership and finding solutions, to name a few. So there's a lot of detail that kind of sits behind that, and under each of those key behaviours, we were looking at a number of different things because we were always mindful that it's not necessarily a traditional training course that can really change an individual's behaviour. So we were looking at all different ways of embedding those changes within the organisation. So, Louise, I hope that has answered your question a little bit, but I'm willing, obviously, after this session to catch up with you outside of the session, and I'm quite happy to give you some more specific detail around what we designed, if that would be helpful. We're going to share our contact details with you at the end of the session, so please do get in touch if you want some more information.
So from Helen, hi Helen. They've created line manager forums, which allows line managers at all levels to access facilitated action learning style sessions. So that's the network group of peers. And that's something we've embraced as well, Victoria, isn't it? Our action learning sets. We've found them invaluable. So that's something else we'll be using going forward. So do we have any other questions before we move on to you guys sharing your experiences? No, but as Victoria mentioned, we'll be sharing our contact details. So if anybody's got any questions afterwards, or they'd like some further information or some links from us, please just let us know, because we'll be happy to forward those to you. So what we're going to ask you to do now is to just pop your hand up if there's something that came up in your session or something that you're doing with coaching with regard to transformational change that you'd like to share with us. That would be great. I know there were some interesting conversations going on in the main group before I dipped out. So who's gonna be brave and share something with us?
Dorothy, you put your hand up. Excellent. I think you might be muted, Dorothy. If you could just unmute.
Sorry.
That's fine.
Sorry about that. It was very interesting. The group that I was in, Jill and Dean and I are all people with experience of local government. So I worked in local government for 17 years before going into consultancy. So that was interesting. And we were all in agreement just how difficult it is to change the culture in local government. And then we had a discussion about some of the issues in terms of the successful rollout of coaching programs in local government. And I was able to share with the others the fact that I'd run an ILM level 5 coaching and mentoring program some years ago for a local authority in Northern Ireland. And because there wasn't a framework in place to support the coaches And because there were a number of issues happening in local government at the time, it was just after the reform of local government in Northern Ireland, the whole programme didn't really successfully get off the ground. So it really reinforced for me the need for a framework there and the need for the buy-in of the senior people in the organisation. So we had a bit of a discussion around those sorts of issues.
Yeah, thanks, Dorothy. That buy-in is crucial. It's a crucial aspect, isn't it, of any of these types of projects, and that was something that we really spent a lot of time in creating and getting within our organisation, both from the cabinet members and the corporate managers. We had to spend some considerable effort in that area, but it did pay off. I'd say that's particularly something to be mindful of if you're undertaking these types of projects.
Yeah, I think it was also agreed that if some of the senior people have been through some of these coaching programs themselves and have a better understanding, that can be a great support in rolling something like this out. And the final point was just about the engagement with the elected representatives. Quite often, from my experience, people don't understand the impact that councillors have on the culture in local government, and yet they have a major impact. So that's why I was interested that you had engaged with the elected representatives as part of the process.
So our behaviour standard now covers elected members as well, whereas previously, of course, they had their own code of conduct that they were introduced to as part of their part and parcel of their role, alongside role descriptions and all of those things. But we always had a behaviour standard which just covered our officers, but now we have one that covers them as well, because we were precisely for that point you're making, Dorothy, the impact that they make on the culture of an organisation. We felt that they needed to be engaged with and contribute to this process, and a behaviour standard is also a set of expectations, isn't it, about how people will behave and operate within the organisation. So we wanted to set the expectations for them as well. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We do have from Jill, given the potential for politics to get in the way, getting buy-in from the elected members is a major achievement in itself. Yes, I would agree.
Yeah, it was an achievement. But I have to say that our cabinet were very engaged with transformation, very engaged with the culture change programme, and so that really helped in getting the elected members kind of buy-in. It was really driven by cabinet there.
Okay. Do we have any other questions, or anybody else would like to share their experiences?
Yeah, anything else that people would like to share? It's always very, very useful when you're doing these types of projects to find out what other people are doing in their organisations.
No? Okay. Well, what I'm going to do now, I'm going to share Victoria my details. But I was just going to mention our next steps, because as we said, it's a never-ending journey. So with regard to coaching, our next steps I'm in the process of setting up a coaching area on our learning platform. We already have a manager area. Now we've got a coaches area, and that's going to be populated with all the documents that they need and any resources that we have, webinars, videos, articles, everything will be in one place for our coaches. So there's a one-stop place for them. And those of us who are already qualified experienced coaches are going to start running masterclasses, because they've covered a lot of tools during their training, but between us we've got a wealth of different areas that we've covered. I use a lot of NLP tools in my coaching. I also use mindfulness. Victoria's a qualified MBTI practitioner. So between those of us who are already coaches, we've got lots and lots of tools that we already use that we want to pass on to our newly trained coaches. Some they may like using, some they won't, but it's just something more for them to have in their tool bag. And the other thing we're going to be doing is running themed conversations around culture, and particularly how the pandemic's impacted on our culture. And we'll be then using a coaching approach to facilitate that. Did you want to add anything, Victoria, before I share our details?
No, I don't think so. Just to say thank you to everyone for your time and attention today and your questions. Yeah, so thank you.
Yes, thank you very much from me too. It's been really enjoyable, and it's gone in an absolute flash. I'll just get those details back up for you now. It's just loading. There we go. So those are our details. Please feel free to get in touch with us if you'd like to have a chat, have any questions once you've reflected on today's session, or if you'd like to know any more about what we're doing. You can also find us both on Twitter, and we've been tweeting yesterday and today about the coaching programme, so you can find us on there as well. Thanks for joining us, everyone.
Enjoy the rest of the conference. Have a nice afternoon, and thanks again. Take care.